Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. It's Hassan Khan back with you once again. How are you doing? I'm hoping when you hear this, we are all out of lockdown and you are swinging that bat, smashing that racket, and netting a few goals. Now, this is a bit of a follow-up because my last interview featured Odette Batterell, who is a valued member of Metro Blind Sport. She is a tennis player, represents Metro Blind Sport, and of course her beloved country France at an international level. Well, today I've got someone just as special because without them we really might not have the skill, and that is a tennis coach, absolutely a VI tennis coach in the shape of Mark Bullock. Really looking forward to this one because just want to see how it compares to cricket coaching and football coaching. So look, Mark, thank you so much for joining me, and I know you've done a few of these interviews, so you're becoming quite the celebrity. And before we do go on to speaking about the coaching and you giving me a lesson on what to do at home, please tell me how you've been keeping and what you've been doing during this lockdown period.
Hi Hassan, I'm very well, thank you, and thanks for the opportunity to take part in this podcast. Looking forward to it. And actually, lockdown has actually created quite a lot of work for me. I've done quite a few interviews similar to this, and we've been working very hard to move activity online, and that's been quite good fun because it's new territory, learning loads.
It sounds like you're keeping really, really busy, which is fantastic. You do some great work for Metro Blind Sport. Let's talk about your coaching. So, look, tennis is the fastest growing VI sport in the country, but talk to me about your coaching career. How did you come across tennis? Why tennis?
Good question, Hassan. In terms of tennis, I played as a junior in Suffolk and played county tennis as a junior. Went to Nottingham University, played university tennis there. Started to take coaching qualifications while I was at university, and then went to Loughborough and did a master's in recreation management. Then took my first job as tennis development officer in Nottingham. And I hadn't really come across any form of disability tennis at that point. I knew of a couple of deaf players who played in competitions that I'd played in. But I shared an office in Nottingham with someone many people might know, Tim Reddish, who is visually impaired. And he was a sports development officer for people with a disability. And I was the tennis development officer. And in my job description, I had one line that said, develop tennis for people with a disability in Nottingham. So I did that very much in partnership with Tim because it was unknown to me then. I hadn't seen wheelchair tennis until 1 month after starting work at Nottingham. I saw an exhibition at Fed Cup. The first project I did with Tim in a school in Nottingham was to go and explore visually impaired tennis in the early 1990s at a school in Bramcote, just outside Nottingham. We had no idea that the Japanese had started back then. We were very much exploring, and it was very skills-based. So my first contact was then, and there is actually proof. We wrote it up, and it was published in the LTA coaching magazine. Then I started coaching wheelchair tennis. Cut a long story short, I was national coach for wheelchair tennis from 95 to 98. I joined the International Tennis Federation in 2001 as wheelchair tennis development officer. I'm now coaching at Islington on a Wednesday and a Friday, 3-1 session and the party-sighted session.
No, let me take you back a bit. So you're saying you discovered VI tennis in the 90s, mid-90s. Was it different to what it is now, firstly?
Yes, we didn't have the foam ball that's currently used. And I remember sitting in the office with airflow balls and pushing bells into them and cutting tennis balls open and shoving things in to see what we could make. So it wasn't quite what blind tennis looks like now. It was skill-based, but I guess we were experimenting even back then. Myself and Louise Astion, who's the national VI coach, were on a phone call to a blind school in Texas last week because they'd seen what we were doing on Facebook, and they invited us onto a call. That wouldn't have happened in the 90s.
Well, how different is it coaching partially sighted tennis as opposed to wheelchair or mainstream tennis?
I think that's a really good question, Hassan, because I think my coaching philosophy, perhaps because I've been doing disability tennis for so long, is very much to engage the players in the process rather than coach telling player what to do. And I think that's a key element. When I re-engaged with blind tennis, it's very much going on a journey of asking questions of the players, getting feedback, and then chucking in some ideas, some of which will work, some of which won't. And sometimes the players might set limitations on themselves and you're trying to challenge them a little bit to go a bit further. Other times they'll give you very honest feedback and you'll go, okay, that isn't going to work or that can't happen. So in some ways different, in other ways very similar. If you're very people player centered as a coach, that will be your process. You look at the player. The skills are different. For me, it's more about how you play the sport. I'm less worried about what it looks like and how the technique. It's how we have effective technique that allows it to happen. So, for example, it's very unlikely that a B1 player is going to have a forehand or a backhand that looks like Roger Federer.
Right.
Because they're playing after 3 bounces. The ball is barely off the ground. Yeah. So the technique is going to be different. It's looking at what does work in the non-disabled game, the sighted game, and saying, will that work? Won't it work? Rather than assuming that it will. For example, one session several months ago now, I guess, B1 players were allowed 3 bounces. I'm just running around with bits of sticky tape, marking where the bounces are so that I can then show the players where the first, second and third bounce are. But it's also helping me, to build up a picture of what the sport looks like, because that third bounce does provide different dynamics, different angles. So I think you have to be very open-minded as a coach. You have to have the ability to problem solve, be very willing to listen, willing to take constructive criticism. The other day I was trying to develop some audible targets. So I got a tennis ball tube, put some rice in it. I thought, well, if someone hits that, it falls over and makes a noise. Then I thought, well, actually, if you roll it between 2 players, it becomes a ball that doesn't roll off to the side. If you've got new players that are coming in, and this might work for cricket skills as well, new players coming in, you want them to work on their tracking skills. Well, now we've invented a tube that's audible. Some people might like that idea, and some go, well, that's not tennis because it's not a ball, but it's finding the little solutions that work for different people. And I think that's why I enjoy it. And I think I've become a better coach because of it.
And more innovative by the ideas of, putting rice in a ball. That's thinking on your feet.
Yeah. And another example was the LTA are sharing really good content on tennis at home. I will see something and go, okay, great little exercise. How do we make it inclusive? And they shared the idea of rolling a ball across what they were calling a lily pad, which was a tea towel.
Yep.
So I saw that and went, right, okay, how do we make that lily pad audible so that someone knows it's going across the lily pad? They can't see it. So I'm like, tinfoil. And again, I don't know whether it's going to work. So I just go to the kitchen, get some tinfoil, whack it on the floor. And, does the audible ball make a different sound if it goes across the tinfoil or if it goes across concrete? It may or may not work. And then we're filming it, my wife's filming it, and the tinfoil blows away. And you go, okay, we're learning. It'll work inside, outside. Potentially, you've got to find a way to stop the tinfoil from blowing away when you're playing. Yeah, I think, as you say, makes you a problem-solving coach, an innovative coach. My dream, Hassan, is that in the future, the audible tennis ball will be just regarded as a normal ball that young kids use.
Right.
And it's an inclusive ball. And the same for an audible football. Yeah, it's not a special ball that we have to run off and get because someone has turned up with a visual impairment. It's actually the ball that the kids are already using. So a lot of these ideas, I think, will become more mainstream. Therefore, they'll become more cost-effective. Coaches will be more familiar with them, and we'll start to break down some of the barriers.
Absolutely. That was going to be actually my question, because are there thoughts and ideas of how to progress this game? So we've got 700 or 800 players playing. Can we now push that number? But also, can we improve the game? And if we can, how?
Yeah, I think, well, as far as tennis is concerned, Hassan, the ball, as brilliant as an innovation as it was by the Japanese, it's quite basic. It's not very robust. It gets dirty quite quickly, so loses its colour contrast. Because if the ball is higher visibility, if it bounces better, if it bounces more predictably, because the current ball, because of the way it's made, it doesn't bounce as consistently as it could, then I think there's a potential, for example, that the court size might get a little bit bigger and it becomes closer and closer to tennis, although it is close to tennis already. And I think if a ball comes that's suitable outside, that will really help to grow the sport, because at the moment most visually impaired tennis is played indoors because it's a foam ball and it's affected by the wind.
Now, Mark, talk to me about the coaching badges, because, you'd obviously want future coaches to come along and take over the good work that you've been producing. We'd obviously like to see VI coaches. Now, I think Odette's got level 1 and level 2.
Yep.
But have you been talking to the LTA or working with the LTA to make all of the badges accessible?
Yeah, it's a big passion of mine is to get more coaches involved in disability tennis in all senses, but also to get more disabled people qualified. At the moment, I could be wrong, but I think the highest qualification that a visually impaired player has got is level 2. I think I'm right in saying that the highest qualification that a wheelchair player is level 3. I don't mind saying this on record. I'm not a big fan of the playing test. I think I still play quite well. I'm not sure whether I would pass the test right now. Don't know. I haven't done it. I don't know exactly what it comprises of. So, for example, one of the things I would like to do is start coaching, whereas legally I'm, say, the lead coach at some of these sessions, but I've got a visually impaired coach as my assistant, in inverted commas, but then we're able to demonstrate that actually they're taking the lead and I'm the assistant. And then we share that practice and hope to change people's mindset around what's possible. Actually, on a Friday night at the visually impaired sessions, my assistant trainee coach has a learning disability. So going on a similar journey there. And I hope that in a few years' time that there will be more disabled coaches, not just getting the introductory level, but going through the whole coaching system, to become level 4s and level 5s.
Absolutely. Now, obviously, the answer to the next question should be everyone, but I'm going to ask it. So, as a result of your coaching, your excellent coaching, can you pick out players that have improved immensely and that are playing world-class tennis?
Well, really good question. I think I won't take the credit. I mean, I've coached or had contact with a few players that have played in the Blind Tennis World Championships. They were already playing at that level when I came in. In a way, I wish we'd better video recorded the VI players over time, because certainly I can see a dramatic improvement, not just in the players that I've coached, but across the board in where blind tennis was 3 or 4 years ago to where it is now. Some of that's down to the coaching or providing an environment, and it's also down to the players' own commitment and them playing more. The B1 game, when I first saw it, the rallies were very short. Now you're getting rallies, and that's only going to evolve. I think one of the successes of tennis is we've got quite a lot of women playing, as there is, I'm sure, around the cricket. There's quite a good social network. But I would love the sport to evolve through the equipment and through the players improving so that it becomes more and more like tennis, and there are longer rallies, more strategy, more movement. I personally play tennis less now to compete. I play tennis to exercise. So if I'm playing with a foam ball and I can't put the ball away, I can't hit winners, you get long rallies. And I still think before the rules get too set in stone, a willingness to explore different ways of playing to maximise what you want to get out of the sport. So, for example, if you're a B1 player and you're coming for physical activity, maybe we play against a wall on a thin, narrow court, so you get a long rally. Yeah?
Yeah.
And you're playing against a wall, so the wall's never going to make a mistake. People play for different reasons, and I play with sighted friends, some of whom who like to play points, and others who like to do drills for different reasons. And that might be because you want to use it more as a cardio session. So if you do drills, you hit a lot of balls with little rest. If you play points, you're likely to hit less balls and you have more rest in between the points. And that's part of the fun and the challenge of taking those sessions as well on a Wednesday and a Friday, that they're group sessions and people are coming for different reasons. So this is no secret. We've talked to players about this. On a Wednesday night, you've got players with a world ranking right through to players who are coming for the first time. So that adds to the thinking around how those sessions are run. And as you know, we have a fantastic group of volunteers led by Linda Armand, who without them, those Wednesday night sessions wouldn't work anywhere close to the way they do.
Absolutely. As I've said before in these podcasts, Metro, Blind Sport and other charities, we heavily rely on our volunteers, especially with the meet and greet and even with the social networking. So it's brilliant and we appreciate that. Mark, finally, in mainstream tennis, you see Rafa Nadal being prepared. You see Djokovic, he's changed his diet to become world number one. How do you prepare a player for a regional or an international tournament?
I mean, those principles are the same. Yeah, and it's going to be interesting what happens in lockdown because people can't play in the traditional sense, but they're essentially in a long period of preparation. Yeah, so I think some players are going to come through this without realising it as slightly better tennis players because they will potentially do lots of yoga. They can really work on good nutrition. They can, and I'm going to experiment this week with Naki, work on coordination exercises that will all help players prepare for playing a tournament. Yeah, and I think that preparation side is key. If your body is flexible and your body is ready, you're ready to play from point one. Yeah, if your body's not ready and you're stiff, it might be a few games before you're, in a tennis sense, before you're engaged. And again, it depends on the player, and the player's got to buy into what you're suggesting, and some will buy into it and others won't.
Mark, I know you're not a dietitian, but as a coach, what recommendations would you have for the VI tennis players whilst they're on this lockdown mode?
I would highly recommend good diet, lots of rest, good sleep, lots of yoga, so that your body is loose, doing a good warm-up so that you're, in a tennis sense, you're ready to play from point one, or if it's cricket, you're ready to play from the minute that you enter the field of play. You're not using the first few overs to get your body and your mind in the right place.
Yep.
And I think we forget quite a lot that the warm-up is actually also there to warm up the mind.
Mark, I've thoroughly enjoyed this chat. Thank you so much for your time. And over the last 4 or 5 weeks, I feel I have been well and truly schooled from having done these interviews. So appreciate the coaching session. I think I need to actually go away and do a few of those activities and those things you suggested to me. Yoga? Maybe not. Anyways, I promise I will leave the last few words to you. However, to our viewers, members, subscribers, fans, supporters, trustees, and everyone out there, please follow us on Twitter. That's at MetroVI Sports, and visit allthews.metroblindsport.org. And I will now take leave. Signing out, Hassan Khan.
Just like to take the opportunity to thank Metro Blind Sports for giving me the opportunity to coach, because I really enjoy it and I learn. And as we've mentioned before, a massive thank you to Linda Armand and the team of volunteers that allow these sessions to take place, because if I stop doing the sessions, they'll still happen. If the volunteers stop supporting the sessions, they won't happen. So they're critical to the sessions. And I'd like to conclude by saying that I would always welcome any feedback on the sessions that we're delivering face to face, but also any of the content that we're sharing online. Is it suitable? Should we do more of a certain thing, less of something else, so that we can really, in this lockdown situation, maximise the support that we can provide to players.